What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. Today I'm bringing you a bit of a different show than usual. I'm bringing you a show I'm going to call Trending News. And maybe that name will change. Maybe we'll have a bit of a variation on it over the next while. But maybe every week, maybe every couple of weeks, every so often, I'm going to come to you with maybe 3, 4, 5 different little topics and just kind of run through them quickly. The 3 topics I'm going to touch on today, after UFC Paris, I want to talk about crowds and how important they are to mixed martial arts and crowds all over the world. The next thing I want to talk about, I don't really like talking about it, but it's one of the trending topics. I looked it up on Reddit. Conor McGregor. We'll talk a little bit about Conor McGregor. I'll give you kind of maybe the Irish perspective on it, and the Fighting Nerds as well. I want to talk about them, the weekend they just had, and also next weekend coming up, and how that might go for Jean Silva. So we'll get into all of that here now. I'm going to start with crowds though, because watching that UFC Paris event, it's very hard for that not to outweigh everything. Even I was going to talk about the middleweight picture, Mavov and Bahalio and Fluffy and all coming up, but maybe that could be a better discussion for maybe a couple of weeks' time when that Fluffy fight happens. But it was funny. I was watching because it was early here, and there's other sports on, and I was kind of watching on 2 screens, and I had the UFC kind of turned down for a lot of the prelims, apart from the Sean O'Bannon one, and I was watching them kind of attentively, but with the sound on. And I turned it up around the main card. I was like, oh wow, what have I been missing out on here? The crowd was absolutely unbelievable, and as someone who's privileged obviously to be from Ireland and have had so many cards, obviously I was at the UFC Dublin with the aforementioned McGregor, and a very similar night to Saturday where we had the 5 Irish plus Gunny Nelson, I suppose, going 5-0, 6-0 that night, and starting off with Paddy Hoolan was absolutely unbelievable. And you could see how that made McGregor a star. Like that, you could see the support he had behind him. You could see the support all the fringe people had behind them on Saturday night. It was absolutely unbelievable. And I think this is very interesting for the UFC, but for PFL as well and other places. I think, and we'll just touch on PFL quickly first, because PFL, I don't think they're doing the same thing as the UFC in terms of where they put their events at the moment. We'll get to the UFC in a second, but I think if you're the PFL, and they have done this in fairness, like Dublin, Paris, I think Sweden as well is a great place, Italy, we've seen Cage Warriors go there. I think those places, they should be really hitting them. Now, unless it costs an absolute bomb to put them on there and things like that, I think they should really be focusing on those areas as well. Obviously, you need America and maybe Brazil and Canada and other places as well, the more, I suppose, traditional MMA strongholds. But I think the crowds make the fighters bigger, and when the fighters are bigger, it makes the promotion bigger and it makes people tune in and all that. I really think it matters. And for the UFC, I think it does too. Now, the thing with the UFC, we know the UFC they're putting on events that are either not costing them very much in the Apex, or that they're getting, site fees and signing deals with places. And look, they're a company, that's their absolute right to do. And if that's their MO, look, no problem. I don't think the fans would be that happy with it. But I think, 42, 43 events that they're going to do on Paramount Plus next year in the US. I think there's room in that to do, 10 events-ish that are for the good of MMA, for the good of the UFC, to build your fan base, to build your fighters. And where should those events be? Like big events in Mexico, big events in Brazil, for the Mexican crowd. Ireland, look at Paris again. Obviously going back there should be another place they should go. I really, really think they are absolutely vital for the growth of the sport, but for the UFC as well. I you remember, who was it, that actress, what's her name, Meryl Streep, was saying, oh, there's nothing mixed about mixed martial arts in terms of the location of where the fight is from. It couldn't be any more different. It's obviously massive in America, but obviously Ireland and England and all these different places, MMA, and look at Georgia and look at Spain and all that. Spain, again, another place where the UFC should definitely be going to grow their brand. And okay, if you're not getting the massive amount of money from the government or whatever to go there, I think that's a hit you almost need to take to grow it. To maybe if you put on 1, 2, 3 events, the next time maybe the government will pay you to come back because they realise how big it is. And okay, if you're the UFC, maybe you could argue, I've already put in that groundwork and we're there and we can get all those places now. We don't need the places. I think that's a little bit short-sighted. What if like some of those go away, and which can happen. Now it's going obviously unbelievably well at the moment, but I think growing, like, to quote Dana White, world fucking domination is what they wanted before. And to have world domination, I think you need to put the effort in all around the world. Now, the UFC in general have been very, very good at this, but I think in the last few years, obviously COVID and all, you know, Dana White, we could talk for an hour about Dana White's opinions through COVID and everything like that, but he was the one who wanted to keep going and everything and wanted to change anything. But COVID probably changed the UFC more than it changed anything else, like with the Apex and all that. Now, I'm not the biggest hater in the Apex in the world. I know a lot of people absolutely detest it, but they need to be getting out of the Apex for the most part now and going to places to build fighters, build crowds, build your sport all around the world. So that's my thoughts on that. I genuinely think after Paris, after that weekend, they should be doing at least one event a year in Paris. At least. I think, look, London, they're already doing one event a year. They should be doing that. I think in places, say like Ireland and Sweden and places like that, maybe one event every 2 years, one event every 3 years, like at minimum. That's not, to me, that's not crazy. I know the arenas in some places, especially in Ireland as well, is not that big. So maybe that's a bit of an issue as well. But still, I think to build a sport, Look, you know, the biggest fighter I've ever had has been from Ireland. Look, Ian Gary is massive. And I really think that's a thing. And in places, I'm sure there's lots of people might listen to this and go, here, I'm from Spain. We need a big event. Absolutely. Like, Spain has the Santiago Bernabeu, which is a closed-in stadium. Why is Ilia Topuria not fighting there? And I know someone chirped in at me on Twitter not too long ago and says there's issues, like, with the government and stuff. Okay, fair enough. But, like, come on, down the line, that should definitely be a thing that they're... that they're targeting. I really, really think it is. Again, PFL, the same, they have done a good job of it. I was going to mention Africa there. PFL have gone to Africa this year. They're going to different places in Africa as well. They need to come back to Ireland. So I really think that's an important thing for MMA and the big MMA organizations. Right, let's talk about my favourite subject, Conor McGregor. So Conor McGregor's talking about running for election here, and I'm not going to get overly political here, but I'm going to try out some information here. So the Irish election is taking place on Friday, the 24th of October. So not that far away. I know the American one goes on for like 9 months, and then it finishes, and like 3 months later, you get inaugurated. And all. So that's not the case here in Ireland. The current president is out on the 11th of November, and the election has to take place 60 days before that, so it's 24th of October. To be in the election, you must be these things: an Irish citizen, obviously, which McGregor is, over 18, which McGregor is, a resident in Ireland, and registered to vote. And then you need, is McGregor the last 2 things? Is he registered to vote? Do we know that? Maybe. Is he a resident of Ireland? Maybe, yeah, possibly. Okay, so to run for president, you can't just go up, I'm running for president, people can vote for you. That's not the case in Ireland. You need at least, you need one of these 3 things. At least 20 members of our Oireachtas, so it's like our cabinet or whatever, to allow you to be nominated. You need at least 4 local authorities, so, you know, obviously, like I'm in Limerick here, and there's one in Tipperary and Dublin and Cork. You need 4 of them. Or you need retiring presidents can nominate themselves as well. Obviously, that's not the case this time because our president has served 2 terms and he's finished now, basically. So the deadline for this as well is the 24th of September. So I'm recording here on the 8th. We've only 16 more days of this to put up with. So that's basically it. A lot of the talk in Ireland, now I don't know obviously a whole lot about this, but a lot of the talk in Ireland is that McGregor has absolutely no chance of getting the 20 members of the Oireachtas, which are our cabinet. The 4 local authorities is the way he's trying to go. I know he's like sent letters to apparently all of them. I believe that there is there's one which they're lobbying hard to get. There's rumors of another one. Will he get any? Will he get all 4? Who knows? But all of that, we'll see if it happens. I think it's unlikely. A lot of people in the know think it's very, very unlikely that he is able to run for president. But if he does, let's say if he does get it and he does run for president, will he get in? In my opinion, having studied Conor McGregor, I suppose, since before he was in the UFC, and seen a lot of the reaction to him from people just in real life or online or whatever, like, McGregor was one of these characters, I think, when he came through at first, that was, you either liked him or you hated him. And maybe it was like a lot of begrudging and stuff at the start, and I think maybe it was 70-30 for McGregor, but a lot of people didn't like him as well. I think now it's probably closer to 95-5 for people who don't like him and people who do like him. So the election for president here is basically the whole country votes. Whoever gets the most votes becomes president. It's very simple. It's not like, America is very complicated and things like that. It's very, very simple here. So do I think Conor McGregor will get enough votes to become president? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. I think he get a certain amount of votes. I think he's gone really hard on immigration and different things like that, which is a big issue for a lot of people I know, and maybe he'll get votes because of that. But he's gone very kind of obviously he's been in the Oval Office with Trump, and Elon Musk is tweeting about him, and he's kind of, on that, wherever you stand, or that's up to you, whatever, he's on that side of it, and he'll get votes from the people on that side of it, I'm sure. But I think some people on that side of it obviously don't like Conor McGregor either, because of the things he's done down through the years. Obviously, we know about. I think I was reading a thing the other day. Whenever I hear what is it, 10 or is it 20 previous offences or something like that, whether it's driving offences or punching a man in a pub. And obviously we know about the civil case with Nikita Hand, which he lost and then appealed, and the appeal didn't go through. And there's something else coming up. McGregor actually tweeted about it the other day that's still going on. So we'll see what happens with that. But the general feeling coming out of that, in my opinion, from looking at a lot of reaction, is that McGregor isn't very well liked. So if he can run, if he can get voted, I don't think he'll get in. The other side of that, and we leave it on this, the president of Ireland, McGregor says he's going to do a lot of stuff, and the president of Ireland is not like the president of America. The president of Ireland is a ceremonial role. The president of Ireland goes to shops and opens them, and so we have a Taoiseach and Taoiseach, basically a prime minister and the deputy prime minister, which we call maybe in England or whatever. And we have the cabinet under that, people that are elected into that cabinet. They make all the decisions. The decisions didn't go to the president to be signed off, and the president basically just signs them off. Now, McGregor might make it awkward and not sign off things or whatever, but aside from that, there's no real power. It's a ceremonial role. It is really a ceremonial role. It's 7 years as well. He'll basically be there for 7 years doing nothing. Even if he got that job, does he actually really want it? I don't know. So that's my thoughts on that. Is he going to get elected? I would be very, very, very skeptical. Right, let's talk about the Fighting Nerds. Obviously, it was a pretty atrocious weekend for the Fighting Nerds. Carvalho ended up losing in the main event by unanimous decision. Mauricio Ruffi lost in the co-main event to Benoit Saint-Denis via second round face crank. A couple of months ago, Carlos Prates, he obviously bounced back against Jeff Neal, looked good in that, but then he lost to Ian Gary, and next week Jean Silva is fighting as well. Now, this is a very, very interesting, and Jean Silva fighting this weekend. He is obviously the main event of UFC Noche, over 5 rounds against Diego Lopez. And a lot of people are saying, were the Fighting Nerds fraud checked, basically? Are they actually no good? Were they just getting easy matchups beforehand, or what was the case? Now, I don't think the Fighting Nerds were fraud checked, to be honest. I thought in the Bahallo fight, the crowd played a massive part in this, right? I thought he didn't fight to his own best because of that, and he just basically, the bright lights got him. I think Ruffi maybe was a little bit fraud checked. I think Prates came up against a really, really good guy. But for Jean Silva coming up this weekend, when the gym is coming off of such a bad weekend, you have the top 2 fights, both of which could put you, one of which would put you an obvious number 1 contender if you won it. The other would put you, top top 10, top 5, whatever it might be, maybe 1-2 away from being the number 1 contender, and you're in a similar position now. I think, what's Lopez ranked, like number in top 3 anyway, something like that. If you beat him, you're in the same position. Like, how will those losses affect Jean Silva? How will he react to it? Like, and it's not only that, he's also coming in here and he's fighting 5 rounds, I believe, for the first time. How will that affect him? How will the main event affect him? The UFC match, obviously, this is a bit of a grudge match as well with Diego Lopez. They don't like each other, And he's coming in, obviously, as well. He fought Bryce Mitchell the last time out. Bagdasharian, Drew Dober, Charles Jordan, all good fighters, but are they as good as Diego Lopez? I don't think so. So it's also a raise up in class. Very similar to, like, you look at Mauricio Hoofy, and he fought, Bobby Green before that, James Littleton top, Malarkey, and a couple more lads. All good fighters, nothing wrong with any of them, but are they as good as Santini? No. And I thought, I said it last week, I said it in the betting show, I thought Santini would beat him. Sorry, I thought he would beat Santini fairly easily. I didn't think Santini was that great, and Santini still beat him. Now, the crowd helped, the pressure, but Rufy's, and this is the biggest one, Rufy's game plan, his control went away. Jean Silva's all about control as well. He's all about waiting and landing that big shot control in the fight. What if he loses that control? What if the crowd is behind Lopez? That is a big issue for him. So this weekend, I think, look, are the Fighting Nerds project? No, I wouldn't say that. But this weekend is a massive fight for that gym. Can Jean Silva pull it out? Can he get the big knockout? If he can, they're back on track. If not, by God, it's been a pretty bad few months for the Fighting Nerds. So we will see on that. All right, everybody. That's it from me. Let me know in the comment section below if there's anything else on the next show you would like me to discuss. Let me know your opinions on anything that I was said here. And until then, I will leave it there. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.